We're here at the Green Door Tavern in River North with Keith Giles and David Chase to talk about the West Loop and the South Loop. How do you feel about urban planning in the South Loop and the job that's been done? I mean, you know, this is a rare opportunity. You have a giant neighborhood on the edge of downtown, on the edge of the loop, close to all the office buildings. This is a chance to really start from scratch, you know, make Burnham proud. Have we done a good enough job planning and thinking about the kind of environmental concerns you're talking about, thinking about foot traffic and ground floor retail and all these things, you know, urbanists think about in the South Loop?
I mean, we can always do a better job. Nobody would have anticipated the how fast the growth occurred in the South Loop. You know, if somebody had told me 13 years ago when I was sitting in my sales center with 2 sales agents and 3 people a weekend coming to visit us, that we would have 12 cranes out there, I would have snickered at them and said, you know, are you sure? And would have gone out and bought all the land, which I didn't do. But you know, we can always do a better job of planning. But I will say this: I think the city of Chicago is one of the more futuristic cities in the country. They really think things out. They really have a very, I think, outstanding planning department, and we've worked with them for many years, and they try to do the right thing with the entire community and the city and the environment, balancing all of those factors. You know, there's been some controversy over the years about going up higher. It's actually good for the environment in major urban destinations to encourage high density, high buildings, because it provides for farmland out in Iowa to stay farmland, and that's needed. And it's, again, it's a global thing that some people in neighborhoods maybe don't recognize sometimes. But I think the city takes that into consideration, and you know, in every project that we've been work with, you know, I view that relationship between the city and the private developers as one in which we have been able to very happily coexist.
And in light of that, should we be allowing more high-rises in the West Loop? Are we falling down on planning in the West Loop by limiting height and?
No, I think it's by design. You know, any developer in the city has, if you want to be successful, must coexist with not only the Department of Planning, but the neighborhood groups, as well as the residents of the community. And the residents of the community, many of which are shepherded through the West Loop Gate, community organization in the West Loop, are proponents of relatively low-density buildings. So you're hearing a public voice. The aldermen listen to that public voice. The Department of Planning listens to that public voice, and what you end up getting is a rather democratic approach to development. Just because one guy might have deep pockets and want to build a 30-story building in the middle of the West Loop, may have the financial wherewithal, may have the political clout to do it. However, because there is a good balance between the developer, the community groups, the alderman, and the mayor's office and his various, you know, departments like the Department of Housing, you get a good exchange of ideas. And in the West Loop, where the Department of Planning set forth a certain zoning map many years ago, that only changes through this political process. And whereas in the South Loop, you know, I don't remember what it's called now, DX7 or DX12. I'm not sure what allows you to build a 250, 300, 400 foot tall building, but it's a completely different underlying zoning than the West Loop. So it's, you know, you look at it, I think it's almost by design what's occurring. And if there were a policy that allowed for gradual height, I would certainly support that. I think it would help developers and help community advocacy groups understand, rather than each deal being vetted throughout the process. And that's kind of what we have in West Loop, which is a little painful, because you can begin the acquisition process in some cases 3-5 years before you actually build. Could be 1, very unlikely. But, you know, during this time frame, the administration's off, you know, administration changes, the people, the head of the community groups change, the profile of the neighborhood changes. So it's important to have underlying zoning requirements, underlying rules for the game that we can follow, so that in our long-term planning process, there's continuity. And that's really what we look for more than anything.